Hey guys, so I've played a bunch of Gotham Knights. I did an AMA on Twitter just for people who either haven't played the game or who are wanting to know my opinion on it, just on how I feel about certain mechanics or questions about how certain things work. If you have any questions about Gotham Knights, leave them in the comments below. I'll probably do a second part to this AMA, but let's go ahead and get right into this. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be. I'm just going to read the question, who it's from, and we'll get into my response to it. So, Cool Guy J on Twitter says, one of the most common criticisms I've seen from people who played this is that the combat feels sluggish when they're comparing it to Arkham. Now, I'm aware that this is a combat system which is completely different from Arkham, so what are your thoughts on it after having played it? And he adds, how does combat compare to other games in general? Let's leave Arkham out of comparison, but compare with other similar type of games which has this type of combat. And so in terms of combat, I'm not going to lie, I'm having a blast with it. I will say that when I started playing Gotham Knights, I was worried because I felt like it was going to be really repetitive and I felt like it was just very arena, video gamey based combat that didn't feel as fluid as Arkham. It felt way more simplistic, and I was missing a lot of those quick-fire gadgets that were in the Arkham games. But as I continued playing, you can actually unlock quite a few quick-fire gadgets. You can unlock the Bat Claw that you could do in the Arkham games, like the Bat Claw pull. You have batarangs that you can upgrade throughout the game, and on top of that, you have momentum abilities, and it actually does feel very fluid, very fun. I'm having about as much fun with this combat system as I did with the Arkham games. I do think that the Arkham combat is slightly better designed, but in terms of games in this genre with this type of combat, I think this is some of the best designed combat in the RPG action-adventure space. I like it better than the Assassin's Creed combat that we've been getting recently. And so, yes, I do think that Gotham Knights has some good combat. You still have to time your attacks right, and there is still a good challenge to it. There are some frustrating elements, such as drones, which I'll get into in another question here, actually, which I don't appreciate. But overall, it's been really fun upgrading my character, getting the abilities that I want to use in combat, using the momentum abilities and timing those out. It just works really well. It's a cohesive combat experience, and I'd argue that it's actually one of the more polished gameplay mechanics of Gotham Knights. So yes, I think the combat is absolutely worth playing through. I've had a lot of fun with it. So then Cool Guy has a few other short questions that I also want to address. One is the stealth varied like Arkham did it, with various different kinds, or more simplified? This is one thing that I am pretty disappointed with in Gotham Knights. I like what they tried to do. They tried to expand the stealth, but unfortunately it feels a lot more limited. What they did is they made it so that most encounters can be approached either from a stealth perspective or from a close combat perspective. The problem is that by using that philosophy, there isn't really any danger anymore. So if you go in and try to use stealth, the consequence of getting caught isn't that you're going to get gunned down, but rather that then you're just going to have to turn it into a melee combat encounter, which is fine. So the danger of it is gone. There also aren't as many rooms designed like the Predator rooms of the Arkham games, so the rooms aren't particularly tailored to stealth. So the stealth feels much more limited, and also it doesn't feel as robust. You can do things such as ledge takedowns, but they are far more limited, far more particular about how close the enemy has to be to you on the ledge, so it doesn't feel as good to me by a long shot. I think Arkham did stealth way better. His next question is voice acting. Is there any character's voice actor that left an impression on you? So far, they've all done great. There have been some line deliveries that have felt over the top from each character. There have been some lines of dialogue that didn't feel particularly well written, but pretty much across the board, all of the actors do a good job. I have liked the writing, and I think that for the game, they were trying to make a game where you can play as one of any four character at any given time. It works really well. I've played the entire game as Batgirl, and it's felt very seamless. There have been a handful of somewhat clunky interactions with other characters, but overall, it feels like a Batgirl game, having mained Batgirl. The issue is more that then the other characters feel more like cameos than teammates, because you don't get to dual play with them unless you have a co-op friend that's in with you, and I haven't done that yet. But overall, to answer the question, voice acting has been pretty great. I don't really have any issues with it. And then the final question from him is, the previous Batgirl gameplay footage released before game launches has some cringy lines from the thugs. How is the dialogue for the rest of the game? Well, up till now for me, because again, I haven't completed the game. Were there any lines which made you go, oof, that line just does not sound good, or that line could have been written better? Yes, they exist. They are not game-breaking. They fit the world of Gotham Knights, but as of right now, so far, I actually haven't run into any that have been as annoying. Once you get into like the Harley Quinn side mission or the Mr. Freeze side mission, those lines of dialogue are actually very well written. And on top of that, once you're infiltrating the Court of Owls, which so far has been a lot of the game, the court does not talk in a cringy fashion. They talk very much like the thugs did in the Arkham games. So no, that has not been a game breaker for me, and it has not remained as obnoxious as it was in that first mission that you all saw from the first 16 minutes with IGN. So our next question is now from Luke Wayne, the OG, who says, I've got one. I was stuck on the Star Labs mission for a bit. And just to interject here, the Star Labs mission is where you meet Mr. Freeze for the first time. So his question is, any good way to take care of those gun drones? Hard to dodge and hard to kill. Or any combat tips you picked up. Also, who are you liking the most so far? So in terms of who I'm liking the most so far for the hero, I am maining Batgirl. I have enjoyed America Young's performance as Barbara Gordon. I like all the other characters, haven't really played as any of them, so I can't say for sure yet, but I think I'm leaning towards Batgirl. I don't know if anyone else is going to be able to top how much I've enjoyed the experience of playing as Batgirl in this game. In terms of the drones and the combat as a whole, I do agree that it can feel very overwhelming, especially when you have too many drones trying to hit you all at the same time and they're all gunning at you. And yes, they are hard to kill. Make sure you're upgrading your equipment and crafting new gear and equipping it, because I think the best way to take those out is through ranged attacks. And if you have a very underpowered Batarang, then it is going to take a lot longer to kill them. I've gotten to the point where I'm able to take out the drones with about 3 hits from the Batarang. Also, if you can take out the individual who is dishing out the drones, if you can take out the thug who is throwing the drones at you, they will cease to exist, which is an absolute miracle. The drones are really annoying. If you can get them with ranged attacks, and especially a super move with ranged attacks, or I guess they call them momentum abilities in this game, then that will make your life a lot easier. They have been probably the most frustrating thing in combat for me so far, is those pesky drones, so I feel you there. And our final question comes from Wes, and he says, is the cosmetic system fun, or is it tedious to use? There are things about it that I like, and as I've mentioned, I really like the idea of customizing my suit and getting to increase its powers and getting to customize it for certain encounters that I'm going to be facing. Unfortunately, Gotham Knights doesn't really lean into those more fun pieces of it, and it does kind of just feel like you're trying to match your character's power level with the suit, so you're just crafting whatever has the highest power level, and overall, the whole system just feels too big and it doesn't really make much sense. There's just a lot of numbers, a lot of equipment. It feels like it's just too big for what it is, and it isn't very cohesive. So it's been tedious for me. I'm sure others are having more fun with it. There are things about it that I really like. I like getting to change the colorway and some of the specific pieces of gear. But in other areas, it just feels very limited. You cannot customize the transmog suits, which is unfortunate, but it is a mixed bag. I haven't really had an issue with it, and it doesn't overtake the game. If you don't really want to mess too much around with crafting, just craft whatever is the highest power suit and melee weapon and ranged weapon, and equip those throughout the story, and you'll be good to go. It is something that you do have to engage with in order to stay powered up throughout the game, but overall, you don't have to mess with it too much, and you can mostly just focus on the other aspects of gameplay. So those are my answers to the questions so far. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave any other questions in the comments below, and we will see you guys in the next one.